Hello and welcome to North Country Matters. My name is Donna Seymour. I'm a member of the St. Lawrence County League of Women Voters, one of the civic partners for our show. My guest today is Clyanna Lightbourn. Clyanna is with the New York State League of Women Voters, and she is in charge of the Democracy in Detention campaign. Clyanna, welcome to North Country Matters. I'm happy you could join us today to talk about this critical democracy in action project of the New York State League.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really great to be here to talk about an important bill for New York State. So thank you again for having me.
Oh, believe me, it's my pleasure. So you're new to the league, and tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came to be working on this campaign for the league here in New York State, if you would, please.
Sure, thank you. Well, I am originally from Miami, Florida. I mean, let's start at the beginning, why don't we? First generation American. So really got to live in that dichotomy of old world versus new world and, figuring out how to be an American child with, roots elsewhere. And I think that really framed a lot of the way that I view the world. A lot of times it was like, why are things like that? And I think that questioning of systems and, why things don't look the way they should for everyone, really helped me find my activism roots. I became an organizer right around the death of Trayvon Martin. Um, he's actually buried in the same cemetery as my grandmother. So very, very close roots. And then his mother went and ran for elected office, and she was actually running for office that in an area that my uncle lived in. So this was very close to me, and kind of, it's a God bless the broken road kind of story. A lot of a lot of different things happened. I was an organizer with Citizen Action working on bail reform and marijuana legalization, as well as a number of other campaigns. And really, through happy circumstance, I found this opportunity at League of Women Voters to support a population and community that, we often overlook. We are very aware of them, but we often overlook, and that's people in jails. And so this bill is really an administrative fix because people in jail can vote, but they just don't have access to the ballot. I don't know about you, but I always forget the deadlines and the dates and the like. And I work in politics. I work in I work in the Capitol with so many other folks in these nonprofits. So if I'm forgetting it and I'm constantly reminded of our democratic process, I can't imagine what it looks like for people who are behind bars. So this bill really is to make sure that we fix that access, that we have people who are the experts in voting to be the ones that are in charge of voting in jails.
You know, your story is such a good one, which talks about how events in the community that you lived in inspired your activism. And that's
Yeah.
really what we're seeing all across the country these days, particularly here in the League of Women Voters. So many people are interested in the work we do because of the anti-democracy things that are happening around the country. So, this is a great opportunity to talk about something that is not very well understood. In fact, I think the least understood voting rights is that of someone who is being held in jail. To many people, including those people incarcerated, as you just mentioned, they think they don't have the same rights as other citizens to vote. So let's talk about that and how the League here in New York has been working on this issue. The League did a study on voting in jail in 2023. What did we learn from that study, Clyanna?
Yes, so in that study, I mean, I'm so grateful that this happened. This happened before I even, stepped foot into this campaign. But, we had an incredible team doing a voting in jails report where we reached out to, I believe, all of the counties, if not the high 50s, maybe 53 or so. We may not have just had people respond. But in that voting in jails report, we found that, I mean, about 11 there were 11 existing voting in jail programs in New York State out of our 62 counties. And with a lot of those, they considered some sort of access or voting in jail program to be a poster on the wall or a flyer or, a few voting registration applications that were in a drawer. So what that report really showed us was the huge gap, access gap that we have in jails right now. And not only that, but for a lot of people that were being reached out to in the jails, they weren't even aware that this was possible. A lot of them did not know that folks could vote while behind bars. Um, so we got a lot of really important information about that. A lot of the, raw data we still, keep and work with, but it was really important to kind of map out what access looked like in New York State when it comes to voting in jails. And the answer was not very good.
Well,
Again, this is an overlooked population. Yeah,
and you're right about the fact that until you know where you are, you can't make progress, or you can't even
absolutely.
start a plan to make progress. So that was a very important study for the league to take. So why is voting in jail important as a democracy access issue?
Absolutely. So it's no news to us what's going on federally. New York State specifically is being targeted by the federal administration in terms of voting rights and voting restrictions and the like. The SAVE Act is progressing, in which people would have to show an ID that matches their birth certificate in order to vote, which really disenfranchises a lot of individuals who may have gotten married and changed their name, or people who may have reassigned genders or are now going by a different name. And of course, that not going to match that birth certificate. So we really are at risk of disenfranchising a large number of people who are actively voting. Now, when we look at jails, we have to think of the community impact of jails. These are individuals who are being removed from their communities for one reason or another. And that person is not just a number. That person is a father, that person is a parent, that person is a sibling, that person is a child, the child of someone, and they are a significant resource in the community. That's also a laborer, an employee, and those kind of things. We're not just removing a person, but we're removing a resource from communities. And we know when we look at the arrest rates, while Black people are about 36% of the population in New York State, we make up about 73% of people behind bars. So when you have this overrepresentation in jails, we have to think of how that's going to impact the community when it comes to voting. A lot of people are feeling really disillusioned with it when you think about federal elections, but local voting is really what impacts our community almost instantly. So this is an opportunity for us to vote and give our feedback on legislation that later legislation and representatives that later will impact rent, housing, food access, wages, schools, and just really it touches everything. And we are now seeing very, very close races in smaller communities where people are winning by 6 votes, you know. Um, and then you think we probably have 12 people in jail. What could that have done if those 12 folks had access to the ballot? So we have to think about it as a underutilized community resource that is being taken off the board for folks who are also removed from community. It's kind of like a double punishment that you're removed and you cannot have say so. And we also have to think of, we're voting for DAs, we're voting for sheriffs, we're voting for, coroners in some instances. Well, we usually see the DA and the sheriff when they're asking for our vote or when they're ensuring us that we're being protected. How about individuals behind bars who, not to say there's a mask off kind of thing, but it's a more frequent interaction. So they're getting to see really the politics of that individual firsthand. And how important is that to have someone who is right there, who has these daily interactions, with these individuals to be able to say, hey, they talk a great game and they follow it up behind bars too. This person takes care of us. This is a safe person. We think of, we think of counties where individuals in jail die. Maybe there's a death every 6 months. And when you ask them about their in jail voting program, it's not very strong. Not to say that there's a correlation there, but if we're able to vote, if the individuals behind bars are able to vote, a lot of times the electeds will go into spaces where they have constituents or possible constituents. So this also opens up the opportunity for more frank discussions with people behind bars and our elected officials to get a really more in-depth idea of what their community is looking like, as well as what supports can be provided to ensure that people are not going to jail anymore.
You
So
make a
it's just so much. It's
It
yeah.
is, and you make a great point about the whole transparency issue, because right now, if you're in jail, you're very invisible, and you're
Yes.
invisible not only to your community and your family, but this is a really important point, and we certainly are seeing this at the federal level with all these uh, detentions from ICE, because those people are incommunicado. And at least if you're in a
Absolutely.
local jail, presumably you are not incommunicado. So that's a really good point. So some local leagues here in New York State have been doing a lot to educate their local sheriff's departments and their county boards of elections about increasing voter access in jail. And voter in jail is really an election administration issue. What does that mean?
Yes. It means, yeah, that's such a great question. I love this. I get to get nerdy with this now. So in terms of an election administration issue, what we're seeing right now when we go into jails is that there is a group, usually a League of Women Voters and partners, who come in and say, hey, these folks can vote. I can show you the legislation that proves it. I want to go ahead, we want to go ahead and do an in jail voting program. Once you do this, you've got the applications, you go in and you register people, but it's a matter of being able to get into the jail. It's a matter of being able to get the people who are interested. As volunteers, we are not going into cells. We are not going into prohibited areas. We are running a program just like any other program, just like how clergymen come in and do sessions and, do, yeah, different events, and talk through things. We are doing the same thing of we're going in to just provide a service to, our fellow eligible citizens who can vote. A lot of times what we find, and I can speak on this personally, because I went to Rikers a few months ago with our executive director of New York State, Erica Smitka. We went into Rikers to register people to vote. And when we got there, we found there was a lot of confusion. There was a lot of back and forth when we were filling out our applications with people who were interested. We found that parts of the application were pre-filled and they were pre-filled incorrectly. So then that gave us the dilemma of, well, do we change this? Do we have the individual change it? If it's changed, will it be accepted by the Board of Elections? And it was really something as simple as somebody put the date in early and they put 2026, but we were there in November. So it's like, do we cross out 2026 and put 2025? So really all of that to say, we were not experts. The folks that we were with, the corrections officers and and social workers were not experts when it came to filling out that application. who was missing from that room was a board of elections, was someone from the board of elections who knows the law like the back of their hand and could guide us. And that's what we're finding. And that's what this bill really does. It takes it really takes the responsibility of voting in jails and puts it in the hands of the experts, the Board of Elections, so that they can help direct us in a way that makes sure the applications are filled out correctly and that they don't end up being returned, and that folks can then go and vote in jails. We're not asking the corrections officers to brush up on on voting laws over the weekend before they come in on Monday. We want the Board of Elections to come in and do this because they know the laws. They know how to fill out the paperwork. They know what a corrected application looks like, and yeah, and more of that. Yeah, they know what they're doing. We don't, and we're asking them to help us.
And the name of the bill that we're talking about here that would permit this is called the Democracy in Detention Bill. And
Mhm.
if it is passed and signed into law, it will do the things that you just talked about, won't it?
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's really, go ahead.
And not only will it do what I mentioned of really putting the onus on the Board of Elections, but it would also provide civic education. So we're not just giving folks, a lightsaber without the manual. We're showing them, we're talking to them about this is why your vote matters, and this is how it impacts communities. And it's bipartisan education. It's not like one side, similar to the League of Women Voters. We are a bipartisan organization. We do not, take a stance on either side. We just want to make sure that you have the access, that you have the education. It also provides ADA compliance. So if folks have, if there are folks in jails with disabilities, this bill would make sure that all of those barriers are removed, and it provides language access to ensure that people understand what they're filling out. And that's not to say exactly that it would be, well, while it will be provided in a number of languages for people to be able to fill out, we also need to understand that sometimes forms are written at a reading level or a comprehension level that is above the populations that it gets in front of. So when we say language access, it's not just saying that it's going to be written in all of these languages, but really that the individuals will be able to understand, no matter what language they speak, they will be able to understand the legislation that they're voting on, the candidates that they're voting on, all of this information. And another added benefit to this, well, two added benefits that I can think of, is that we've seen studies that show while this is not a criminal justice bill, this still would impact, the criminal justice landscape in that we have seen that civic participation reduces recidivism rates for people behind bars. It is less likely that they will go back to jail if they are participating in civic access. And we also see that in these conversations we are having with electeds, a lot of times they're like, how can I get into the jails? Like, I would like to meet with the constituents. And it's like, you can now. You can do it right now. But we do see that elected officials go where the votes are. So this also allows opportunities for conversations about the current state of communities, neighborhoods, and the like, and the needs of what we're seeing is our most impacted communities. These are, typically when you go into jails, you'll see that there is an overrepresentation from communities who are underinvested and over-policed. And to be able to get an elected official, a senator, an assembly member, a congressman, the sheriff coming in and having these conversations, we are really allowing for folks to be heard when they're feeling not only their most vulnerable, but their most, I guess, most invisible as well. So this, and we also see that voting also increases confidence for individuals. Some of the best, we've had CEOs pull us aside and say, it's so great when you guys come in here because they feel, because they feel hopeful. There's something to look forward to. There's something to read about research besides whatever's going on with their case. This is something else. And we also see that people behind bars pull in their families, pull in their communities. They don't always want to talk about all of the things that they're missing. They want to also be able to talk about, um, what's going on here and what's going on and how can we change it?
You're talking about reinvesting in a community that they don't feel a part of. And that's really how you
Absolutely.
get to feel like part of a community. So, Clyanna, this is an area that is ripe for advocacy, and not just by League of Women Voters members. How can citizens get involved and help advocate for the voting rights of people in their county jails?
Yes. Oh my goodness. The best question. One of the ways to do it is to reach out to your local League of Women Voters. We are everywhere. We are Legion. I love it. It's one of my, I've become a member recently and I absolutely love this organization. Reach out to your local league and find out what they're doing in regards to voting in jails. Um, you can always join a voting in jails program. There are plenty of chapters that are doing that right now. And you can also reach out to me, Clyanna, that's Clyanna at lwvny.org. You can always email me. We have a working group called Free the Vote that we have been on hiatus for a bit because session really started with a bang. But we are going to be meeting soon, and that's where you'll get a lot of the behind the scenes info about what's going on with the bill, where the bill is sitting, who do we need to talk to influence to get it moving and everything. And even if you're on the fence, I welcome you to come. I welcome the questions. If you have concerns, if you want to talk through something, always happy to reach out to me. Please feel free to reach out to me and let's talk about it because, addressing your concerns and kind of the things that you're seeing with the bill helps me strengthen the bill as well. It helps me kind of see the angles that I'm missing, and really bring in those conversations to make sure that it addresses pretty much everything.
That's a great point, and certainly I echo your comment about reaching out to your local League of Women Voters because we do have member organizations all across the state. I've talked with several of them recently who are doing some of this work in their local jail, and they're very passionate about it because it is such an important democratic issue for all of us. Voting access, being able to vote. I echo your comments about the problems with the SAVE Act. I'm one of those people who would not be eligible to vote if the SAVE Act passes. And I
Right.
registered in 1972 when I was 18 years old,
Oh,
and I have voted in
wow.
every election since. But I don't vote under the same name that I registered in when I was 18,
Right.
obviously. So, these are very critical issues that we are dealing with as a nation, and we can't afford to forget anybody in
Absolutely.
terms of wanting to. We all want to vote, we all want to say in our democracy, and we want to be able to choose our future as informed citizens who are able to exercise our rights. So,
Absolutely.
thank you so much for the work you're doing for all of us here in New York State. We will certainly put your contact information in our show notes, and we
Great.
encourage people to get a hold of you and to join your free the vote group. Is that what you're going to call
That's
yourself?
correct.
All
It's
right,
the Free
correct.
the Vote Working Group for the Democracy During Detention Act.
Okay, working
Yes,
group. Great. Thank you so much. I'll be sure to put that in our notes. Uh, Thanks for again for coming in.
of
I look
course. Thank
forward to
you.
hearing more from you because your dynamic enthusiasm is infectious.
Thank you so much. Yes. It's really
Excuse
easy
me.
it's easy to put your energy behind, a bill that you believe in. And, that's always been an important part of my campaign work. I don't really support bills that I don't believe in. And it's easy to get lost in those once you dive in.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. There's a lot going on when the session starts in New York State, and there's a lot to pay attention to, but this is a really critical bill. So thank you, Cleanna. We'll follow up with you later on as the session continues and we get closer to a vote. And if there's other advocacy we can help with, just reach out.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, and thank you. These conversations are a production of North Country Matters. This show is a civic collaboration between the League of Women Voters of St. Lawrence County and the Potsdam Public Library. Until next time, remember, our North Country matters, and so does every vote.